A bright, crisp day in early March saw the return to Cowes of an iconic boat, almost 40 years on from making headlines around the world. The small, tired-looking vessel that pulled into Red Funnel's terminal in Southampton turned few heads, but back in 1969, John Fairfax rowed Britannia into the history books by completing the world's first solo ocean row. Fairfax rowed Britannia across the Atlantic to universal acclaim, even receiving a message from the Apollo 11 astronauts who walked on the moon the day after Britannia landed in Florida. Now, after a life of museums and boat show appearances, Britannia was on her way back to the island where she was designed and built, thanks to Matthew Winter. Matthew, you're the instigator of Britannia returning to Cowes. How did it come about?
Well, just over the Christmas break I was walking around Christchurch and just found Britannia sitting in this boatyard, and didn't really know much about her at that point. But then I did some research and realised the story that behind Britannia was such an incredible one, and she's such a famous boat in her day. And after the new year I made a few calls and got in touch with a few people, and it turned out that she was in fact homeless, and there were no immediate plans for her future. So I sort of took it upon myself to try and get things arranged for her, and cut a very long story short, we've managed to find a home for her at the Classic Boat Museum, and Red Funnel have been very kind in helping us get her over there, and hopefully she's going to now find a permanent home on the Isle of Wight, where she was obviously designed and built 40 years ago.
And Ian, you were part of that designing and building team. You built it.
We didn't actually design it, as you well know. It's a variation on the theme of Arthur Fox's airborne lifeboat, but we built it in 1968 or whenever it was. Double skin, double diag skin, mahogany, and I'm amazed to see today how well it's lasted.
It is. It's quite a testament to the construction, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't look as much has been done to it since we built it, but she's still there and still going strong.
Are you pleased to see her back in Cowes?
Yes, I think it's the right place for it to come.
Kenneth, you of course were there to greet John in Florida 40 years ago.
Yes, I was living in New York, and the Daily Sketch, for which I was a stringer, told me that this chappie, as they called it, was going to be arriving, and would I go down there and file the story. They didn't know when, which was the big mystery, is when will he arrive. And being young in my 20s, it didn't matter to me to go down to Florida and hang out, and the first thing I did was to call up Fidel Castro and said that you have an Englishman in an ocean rowboat, is a few miles off your shore, please don't shoot him. And that made the papers in the Sketch and began the story. And Sylvia Cook I met her there waiting for John, and we spent several weeks waiting for John and eventually he arrived, and it was a tremendous achievement, and he was recognised as such.
And how important in the sort of annals of ocean rowing was that row?
Well, it was the first solo ocean row ever, the first being in 1896, a double from New York to the Scilly Isles. The second row being Ridgeway and Blythe. So this being the first solo, it will remain in the history as a first solo ocean row, therefore very important.
Sylvia, you went with John on Britannia, but you did subsequently row the Pacific with him.
I went with John on Britannia too. That was the Pacific boat, yes.
Yeah. And how do you feel today seeing Britannia coming back to Cowes?
Well, I'm very pleased. I'm pleased she's in such good shape, and I'm pleased she's going to such a good home, and it's just brilliant. I'm just sorry John can't be here, really.
I mean, back then, rowing an ocean was a really amazing achievement, and nobody thought it could be done. Today, a lot of people are rowing oceans. Are you surprised by the growth in it?
Well, yes, I am really, because at the time everybody said John couldn't do it, and then everybody said we couldn't do it, and now they have races every year or two, and lots of people are doing it. It's a bit like climbing Everest, but it's brilliant. It's good.
What do you think John would make of it coming back to Cowes today?
I think he'd love it. It's a shame he can't be with us, really. Yeah. But yes, he would love it. He would be very pleased.
Back on the island, Britannia headed for Newport and the Classic Boat Museum, which is to become her new home. Fittingly, an example of Upper Fox's flying lifeboat, which was the design inspiration for Britannia, is also housed in the museum. After a small amount of repair work, Britannia will be on public display in the museum. But she will also sail, or rather row, again, as there are plans to have her on the water this summer. Perhaps even to attempt a round the island row to commemorate John Fairfax and Britannia's achievements 40 years ago.